Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and good night, depending on where you are in the world. And welcome, folks. This is GenAI in Action, Strategies for Business Transformation, put on by Civo. We are excited to have you all here. People are already checking in a little bit in chat, but do comment in there on where you're dialing in from so we can find out all the different places around the world that folks are dialed in from. I'm in Denver, and we've got Josh and Kunal dialing in from London, but would love to see where everyone is. So first of all, some housekeeping. Welcome to the webinar. If you're here for a different webinar, you're in the wrong place. This is the topic that we will be talking about today. Hopefully that's what you all came for. What else? If you have questions, you're welcome to dump them in the comments section as we go. I will try to watch that. If it's relevant and we can fit it in a timely way, we will try to answer them as we go. We also have some questions that you asked during registration that we will get to towards the end. And yeah, we hope you enjoy. So let's go ahead and dive in. To get started, Josh, would you like to introduce yourself?
Oh, of course, I'm Josh. I'm Civo's Chief Innovation Officer, and I take the responsibility for running our AI and ML product line.
And coming up with all the new, creative, exciting things. Josh gets to chase the squirrels and see what has legs, which is always fun. And Kunal, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yep, hey everyone, I'm Kunal. I'm the field CTO at Civo. I'm also based in London. Been at Civo for more than 4 years now. Joined full-time in September 22. So yeah, been here for a while now.
Great. And the reason the two of these guys are here is because they are very knowledgeable on this topic, which you will see as we dive in. But let's go ahead and proceed. And we want to let you know that we are giving away a free relaxAI API key access for 3 months. So that's an unlimited use of the relaxAI API key. Think a whole startup in a box. You can build something on top of this and make it go for 3 months for free, which is a big deal. All the AI that your API coding can handle. I don't know. I'm sure I could say that better. Anyways, at the end of the webinar, we will reach out to one lucky winner and let you know who that is. So stick around all the way through to the end. It's for the people who are attending the webinar live. So if you're here watching, you are eligible. Okay, y'all ready to dive in? Let's go for it. Josh, I'm going to hand over to you.
Thank you so much, Kendall. I'm really excited to be on the webinar today. Let's start with a bit of a landmark statistic. And it's probably a number that you're probably already aware of and everyone's already seen before, which is GenAI is disrupting the way that enterprises solve problems across every single industry vertical that we have today. And actually, the thing that I think is a really strong point to take away from today's webinar is actually 80% of enterprises will either have a model or an API in production environments by 2026. And that's not too far away. That's a large fundamental change in adoption for technology. That's probably a faster adoption than what we saw with mobile apps and mobile local. It's probably a similar rate of change to what we saw with blockchain, if not faster. And this unprecedented pace is being matched at the same time as us being actually challenged around this new battleground where data analytics and big data suddenly looks like a GenAI problem-solving set. And this is what enterprises are very much so hooking onto to be able to drive forward. If we dig into that a little bit in this number, which I think is particularly interesting, is when we review the last year's GenAI project statistics, and this comes from one of our partners, Gartner, it's actually 46% of last year's enterprise GenAI proof of concepts made it into production. And actually, the majority of those stayed in development or stayed in proof of concept stage and never really got realized for business value. And this is a challenge across the organizations that we talk to and across the businesses that we interface with, which actually, whilst you've got record numbers on GenAI adoption, you're seeing growing concern on high project failure rates. And questions we get asked time and time again is, what can Civo do to be able to help that? And when we look at the numbers that are driving these high project failure rates, is actually the largest one is a lack of GenAI ready infrastructure surrounding that API and surrounding that model. And we think this is really important for customers to understand, is that actually the majority of the bottlenecks and challenges you'll have will be existing issues with your cloud platform or existing on-premise infrastructure. And being a Gen AI ready cloud is actually something that requires being relatively recent. And the question we have here is actually, do you have the data infrastructure to be able to process your high performance computing? Is that necessary?
Josh, I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt and just ask. I mean, is that because like hosting a large language model yourself is just complicated? It's hard to stand up. It's hard to life cycle. It's hard to, I mean, you've been doing this for us, so you know that it's challenging, but is that why people are struggling with it so much? Is it's like, it's a different kind of workload and they just haven't done it before?
I think it's a evolution of existing high performance computing. And actually some of these concepts we've seen existingly have just been scaled and stretched further. And some of these things, like having the latest next generation highest performance model, might unlock some AI challenges. But if you're still using your old school 1990s database to be able to power that, that's going to cause bottlenecks downstream. And I think, to add to that point as well, Kendall, is, is the data in that database ready for AI? Is it annotated? Do you have your experts labeling it? Is it in a state where it's clean and ready to use? And I think a lot of those things are becoming really interesting and driving the kind of question is your cloud AI ready? Or is your cloud built to be AI ready 5-6 years ago? And these recent developments have taken it by surprise.
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense. I see it as an evolution. I also think there's just enough things different about it that people really struggle with it. And I think that the clean data thing is a really interesting point. But sorry, I interrupted. Keep going.
No, please always do. But I think that's a really good point as well, Kendall, is it's the most intimidating it's ever been to run a GenAI product. But actually, it's the closest it's ever been to our fingertips. And there's more opportunities, more managed services, more consumers knowing and understanding AI and ML, which I think is fascinating. And if you jump to the use cases that I think are driving this, we shouldn't be afraid to say things that some of these solutions 5 years ago would feel like science fiction. And actually, some of these solutions have never been achievable before until GenAI enabled it. And to start on the left-hand side, to a discipline close to my heart, is actually in pharmaceuticals and larger material sciences, we're seeing 30% of new drugs and materials being systematically discovered by GenAI. And there's some evidence for this on the Civo platform today with customers like Orbital Materials, who are using AI models to do things like decarbonize data centers and actually reduce the carbon footprint of the workloads that they run. And then looking across to marketing, a very different discipline, we're looking at by 2025, 30% of all outbound marketing messages being synthetically generated. So we're in the era where you can receive an email and you're asking yourself the question, was this written by a human or a machine? And I think as that continues to grow and as we continue to expand into marketing, there's so many different considerations to think about there besides the model. And then my favorite one towards the end here is actually by 2030, a major blockbuster film will be released with 90% of that content generated by AI. And these are fundamental paradigm changes. And actually, if you look at these, there's 3 really good examples of very privacy and security-based data. If it's pharmaceuticals, being very IP focused. If it's marketing, it's being the leads and people you want to sell your product to. And in film and media, it's literally your creative design. And we think that there's a couple of considerations here that are really important. But actually, when we talk to customers at Civo, the thing that we think holds back these use cases being able to grow and scale is actually the privacy and security. And on the next slide here, we dig a little bit into it, and some of these are examples I'd really advise everyone to read into. But if I start on the privacy section, and I think that's actually a really good use case here, is that inputs into LLMs are often used for training. And actually, you would always want to check with your LLM provider about making sure that the information you input into this will always be accessible and usable. And actually, there's an Italian court case here for misuse of private information, both in the training data. There's also use cases in pharmaceuticals where you'll see people who are wondering how intellectual property that they put into AI tools is ending up being in their competitors' hands. And looking at compliance, we're seeing actually large degrees of challenges around companies like OpenAI being able to prove their accuracy behind some of these disciplines like medicine. And whilst we think that still is a progress and a research effort worth making, is actually the comebacks for using those in production with things like medical patients is the recommendation that OpenAI will pay your legal bills. Not promise you won't get sued for using people's private information in your system. And we obviously are very much so closely following the EU data privacy in this area, and making sure we have clear visibility about how these things move forward. And then in security, I think what takes most people by surprise is actually websites like ChatGPT have had significant data breaches. And actually, I believe it was 2024, 12% of all premium subscribers' information was leaked publicly. And if you're included in that 12%, you can go find your conversations that you had with ChatGPT in torrents and on the dark web. And I think it's particularly interesting with parameters and being able to put perimeters around your data. When you've got these types of really private pieces of information that you're using in the business every single day, being able to rely on the ownership of your data inside that, we think is really critical to what you're doing.
So it's a, and I'm going to say back to you, Josh, and correct me if I get this wrong. There's this quote, right? Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic, right? Which I think that LLMs and modern AI has felt that way. It's felt magical. I can go have a conversation, have anything answered. So these questions that I've been embarrassed to ever ask publicly, I can go ask ChatGPT because no one will know, and then that gets leaked. Or this business process that I want feedback on, and LLMs are really good at giving feedback on a business process document. All of a sudden, I get all this feedback. Turns out maybe that's leaked to my competitors. So there's lots of it is magical in some ways that it feels wild and new and crazy, and that's why people go and use it. But there's costs is what you're getting to, especially with these big public companies. And it feels like it's going to be safe, secure, and trustworthy. And it's so new and we're moving so fast, we're afraid to miss out. But actually there's cost and there's risk is what you're saying. Man, if only there was somebody offering a really private solution that we could leverage that hopefully we'll talk about here very shortly.
Absolutely. And I think, just to add to that, I think the world of AI is so complex. We have so many consumers using it. So as operators and people who run services in AI, we have a responsibility to make sure these things are private, secure, compliant. We move on to the next slide, because actually I think alongside this, we're talking about mass consumer adoption of AI. And actually, there's a really important piece here around non-technical users. I think to the thing we mentioned before, Kendall, about AI being at everyone's fingertips right now. Actually, the majority of organizations we talk to don't have any internal policy, training, or guidelines about how companies or employees should be using GenAI. And that itself takes a huge step towards prevention. But we also think is really important in the same way that in early days of web applications, we gave people viewpoints on making sure their passwords were secure and to standards. And actually, I think this conversation we're having now is people are starting to understand, much like other ML AI solutions, as the data in increases the quality of the output you get out. Actually, good data in will always give you good data out. And as you grow to use AI processes, over time, you'll realize that good data you need to put in is your private data. The public data that's already been training this model doesn't need that. And I think making sure people understand the value of the data they're in when they're inputting that into an LLM is really important. If you're using a medical record or a patient lead, you'd be very clear in saying this is private. I think everyone taking a mindset, and that's everyone, regardless of level of technical expertise, about keeping cybersecurity and confidential information safe is really important. And we advise that actually, if customers need any help putting those policies together, we have guidelines and templates that companies can use to accelerate their GenAI adoption. Let's talk about what we do differently. And actually, I think I've spent a long time talking about the landscape and the challenges of GenAI. But what we've done on the next slide is actually put together a number of very different components that we think massively reduce the complexity of being able to build high-performance computing systems.
Well, and Josh, before you dive into this, can I add one other thing too? To the lack of AI policy and training, I have a good friend who works at a large enterprise where they have decided that no one, the policy is you cannot use LLMs or AI of any kind anywhere ever. And what he sees happen is because they've gone with that policy, what people do is they pull out their phones and they use it on the side, and they're using it with company data, and they're using it even worse because that policy has gone so strict. So there's a million ways to do it wrong, right up to and including no, under no circumstances can you use it, because it doesn't lead to nobody using it. And so you do need to have a solution that does actually work. And sorry, so please get back to our solution and how wonderful it is, because I'm pleased with it too.
No, but I think you got a really good point, which is, ChatGPT Claude, some of the fastest adopted technologies, the most installed apps in the App Store. You can't have a prohibitionary approach to this. You need to have a security first and security by default mindset, which is what we think is really important. And actually being privacy by design and secure by default, I think leads really well into actually how we position our products differently. And actually, instead of having 150 managed services, we actually have a number of fundamental baseline bedrock services that we think provide a wider degree of functionality than just solving machine learning models. And actually, the pieces that we think are really fundamentally important to that is actually our compute instances product, which provides an equivalent to something like an Amazon EC2. Gives you Kubernetes managed and Kubernetes backed compute and volumes, and just removes the complexity of being able to provision complex machine learning workloads by having all of those provided by default. And the same thing for our managed Kubernetes, to take the complexity out of Kubernetes and worry about orchestrating high performance infrastructure. We will provide that out of the box with the latest NVIDIA GPUs. And then on the right, what we do very differently with data is we obviously support the wide remit of paradigms between volumes, databases, and object stores, but actually all of our data egress and all of our data ingress costs are included by default. And that allows you to think very differently about how you design your solutions, particularly in regards to performance.
I want to highlight that point because I feel like people miss that, and I feel like it's a really key selling point. Data ingress and egress are included. It's not an additional fee. That's a big deal. It shouldn't be a big deal. It's just that compared to the other guys, it is. Keep going.
I always think that's something that if you've gone viral on the internet, or if you had like 1,000 people land on your website in a day, you'll completely understand as a benefit. Because if you've ever gone viral on Reddit and you suddenly had thousands of people jump on your app, you realize it costs you a lot of money in surprise bandwidth. And just not having to worry about that, not having to worry about your success, particularly with machine learning models, where you could have customers sending hundreds of megabytes or even gigabytes worth of data to your model. And also having the ability and freedom to think in like a hybrid cloud premise by default. Being able to say, well, my data's in AWS, but it doesn't cost me any money to go get it. And it costs me money for AWS to let it out. Massively changes and really well complements the variety of deployment methods we have on the right-hand side. So actually, alongside these amazing different types of data storage and very simplified compute, one of the things we do differently is we're the only cloud provider that have parity between these 4 different environments. And obviously, the first one is public cloud. You can access that on civo.com. The next one down is a private region on civo.com. So that would be a single tenancy environment. You would have the entire region to yourself there. The level past that is actually you can look at having multiple regions and an entire Civo dashboard privately assigned to your company or you as an individual. And then most importantly, actually, is things like Civo on-premise, which has been able to actually install and run a full feature-rich public cloud inside your on-premise data center. And we've done some crazy experiments of being able to run those in things like swimming pools, return heat exchange back. And I think the ability for your developers to be able to work on a deployment and send it to the public cloud on-premise or a private region with the same code is fundamentally something that massively improves productivity and other cloud providers aren't thinking about.
And to be able to go sign up on a public cloud, kick the tires, decide you like it, and then run your own is a pretty unique experience.
And I think that's the future where we see cloud, is being able to have autonomy and mastery over where your workload runs. The data stays in your ownership, and then you being able to run high performance workloads doesn't penalize you for doing well with success with things like egress costs. But that's our infrastructure provisioning, and I think this is very much for people who want to build their own high performance machine learning and AI systems. And the most important part that Kunal's going to dig into is actually we have a number of turnkey open source GenAI solutions that will dramatically reduce the risk of setting up and running these types of infrastructure. So when you see the stats we talked about earlier around challenges around deploying to production, here is production-ready software with production-ready infrastructure that you can run really simple evaluations on. And hopefully Kunal shows you how easy that is. But just before he does, I think it would be great to just touch on our other product alongside this, which is, as Kendall mentioned, relaxAI, which is our entire privacy and security-focused large language model. We have a promise that we keep the sovereignty of this data within the region that it's running, and the quality of responses are comparable to things like ChatGPT. We are able to deploy this not only in the public cloud, but also on-premise and in private cloud, something that's not available with other alternatives like tools like ChatGPT. And one of the things that I'm most proud of is actually this is entirely in the OpenAI format. So if you've got an existing application that you've built with ChatGPT, you can change 2 lines of code and really simply gain dramatic improvements to your privacy, security, and compliance. But then also on top of that, be able to reduce the cost of your API. We think that's a really compelling offering from the first point of call. But actually, as we continue to drive the Relax roadmap, we want to do things like offer custom open source models and models as a service, and start to build out more of the agentic functionality inside Relax alongside that. And if you're interested in using Relax either as a free user or a paid user, please feel free to sign up at relax.ai or reach out to the sales team at the very end of the call. That's a really good transition point, I think, to hand over to Kunal. You can dive into some of these demos and put some color around some of the detail.
And Kunal, as you take over, I do want to address the question in chat here real quick. Is it only available or callable from Civo Cloud instance? It's available from a Civo Cloud instance. It's available in private cloud, as Josh is mentioning. So there's a lot of different ways you can do this, but yes, it's a Civo offering. And Kunal, over to you. Thanks, Josh.
Cool. Thank you, Josh. If you want to check out our relaxAI offering, just go to relax.ai. Chatbots are pretty cool, but sometimes you want AI to be inbuilt your application. So we're going to look at how to do that. So today we're looking at 2 demos. Each is going to show you a different way to implement GenAI based on your needs. So in the first one, we're going to deploy an inference engine using Ollama, where you can run your own large language models. That's very simple to do. It's just a one-click install. I'll just show you in a minute. That's the first demo. For all the developers who are joining us, let me know in the chat. We will be doing the second demo, which is creating a custom Python integration using relaxAI. So I have sort of like a real-world project set up, deployed on Kubernetes, on Civo, and we have integrated GenAI in that. So I'm excited to show you what I have, in store. Why would you want to do all of these things? Because, as Josh mentioned, all the challenges and all the news that we've been seeing recently, controlling your own model, means, well, obviously you have more control, lowers costs, you get the freedom to build AI that fits your exact use case. Without wasting any further time, let me just go and do the demo number 1. I hope you all can see my screen. The slide is moving fine. Cool. So what are we doing? We are going to see how to deploy your own LLM, like I mentioned, model inference engine using Ollama on Civo. We will be using Terraform, so it's very simple if you haven't used it before. Just one click, Terraform apply, and it's going to spin up all the resources in my cloud infrastructure. If you are new to this space, by the way, and you don't know what inference means, I'm throwing all these buzzwords around. We're just talking about the process of using a trained AI model to generate results. So for example, when you send a prompt to like a chatbot, it gives you some answer. That's just what inference is. You're not training the model, but you're just running it to get predictions or any text output. So we will be setting up on our own that on Civo. But yeah, so this is ideal for,
Just to clarify, so what we're going to be showing here is in demo 1, how to stand up and run your own private LLM. Like there's people who are asking about this. How can I do this? And then later you're going to show how to integrate with Civo's LLM to, for something else that's a little easier. So it's kind of both. You're going to see standing up and running an LLM. It's complicated, it's messy, except Kunal's about to make it very easy for everyone. And then if you want the even one step simpler where you're using our hosted LLM, you'll see that shortly. But keep going, Kunal. This is great.
Yeah. So I'll show you that, and then I'll also show you our own, GenAI offering if you want to use that. Some people don't like, a good point mentioned by Kendall. This one does require some skills. So we are going to be I'm going to be showing demos for basically, whatever background you come from. We'll share some resources in the end as well for people who don't even know how to code. So we'll just share some links and you can play around with that. But this is ideal for like AI developers, MLOps teams. And what we're going to do is set up the H100 GPU instance. We will install and configure Ollama on it, set up systemd for reliability, and a bunch of other things. People who are new, who will be like, okay, Kunal, what even is Ollama? I don't know what Ollama is. I won't spend too much time on this, but it's open source. It's a lightweight, fast runtime for large language models. You can think of it like, everyone knows if you're using ChatGPT, think of it like a local ChatGPT engine that you can run on your own machine. In our case, we are running it on a GPU-powered cloud instance. Or we have the relaxAI offering, but now you're running it, on your own or in cloud, but you are the one who is controlling the models. So very simple to use using Ollama. It's actually, you can go to the GitHub repository here. They have some nice guides and a lot of other things. Very simple to use, but powerful under the hood. You basically choose a model, you start the server, and just start making API calls. This is the GitHub repository I want everyone to check out. This is the demo, and also after the webinar, if you want to do what I'm doing, then this is the repository. Because it's a little complex under the hood, it just abstracts away all of that complexity, puts Terraform to manage the infrastructure. We put Terraform, and to you, it just looks like one command, but it's all abstracted nicely for you. So what is happening? We have the Civo GPU instance. That's our machine in the cloud. On that machine, Ollama is going to run as a background service, like a model server. You load a model, like you can do Llama 3 or whatever Ollama supports. That is also something you can find on the Ollama website, all the models that it supports. And then it's just ready to serve all the responses really fast. Now you'll be asking, okay, this is fine, but how do I make it do real things? I want to make a chatbot. I want to make like AI in my own online application. Let's say it's a university website, it's an online shop. I need to make AI in that. So you just expose the REST API endpoint, and you can basically connect it to anything, which is also something I'll be showing you. Connect it to your chatbot, your dev tools, anything that can send an HTTP request, just connect it with that. But that's essentially it. This is demo 1, and let's take a look at it. You would want to use this if you want more control, privacy, without being vendor locked in as such with your models, because let's say you're building something with very sensitive data that shouldn't leave the infra. You need you want to experiment with different open models very quickly without jumping through API hoops and whatnot. So I'm going to stop that, and I'm going to just show you how that happens. So this is the GitHub repository. The URL you can see over here, github.com/, it's also, by the way, in the very bottom. So what we need to do is, as I mentioned already, what all things it will be installing, H100 GPUs and whatnot, accessing via REST API. To set this up, to make it running, what we need to do is you need to get your API key. So this is your Civo token. If I just go to civo.com, I won't show you my API key for obvious reasons, but if you go to your settings, your profile, your security, here you can find your API key. So you need that, and you need to add this in the terraform.tf-vars file, which is a file over here. It's not over here, so you have to create it. If it's not available, yeah, it's not available, so you just create this file and just add this one line, and that is it. That's all you need to do. That is literally it. Then you just run Terraform, and it's gonna work. Obviously, we're using Civo, so make sure you have the necessary quota, permissions, and whatnot. This is what I ran earlier, but I can just, if I run it again, as we can see, let me just make it look prettier for you. So just 3 commands. If you're new to Terraform, you just do Terraform init, initialize, Terraform plan. This will basically show me what it's going to create. So it's going to show me, it's going to create a firewall and my my instance, so a Civo instance. And you just do Terraform apply, and this should take like 5-10 minutes or something. But I already have it running for you. So once it is completed, I'm not going to make you wait 10 minutes, but you can see once it's like completed, you can see that, okay, 2 resources were created, my firewall and my online instance. I can obviously see that in the Civo dashboard as well. If I go to my Civo dashboard again, go to my compute, here you can see the Ollama instances available. How do we...
Can you zoom in just a little on that, Kunal, so we can see it just a little clearer? Yeah, that's great.
I will zoom in.
Thanks.
So that was literally it, just one command. And now how do we talk to this? So we mentioned that, okay, it's like an API sort of interface. You can make a call. So let me first give you like a very basic sort of like example. And then we will basically look at a UI, a graphical interface as well to make it look more pretty. So you just make a curl request to this public IP. And let's say you can see over here, this is one that was already running. I just say hello world. And it's saying, hey, it's nice to meet you. Is there something I can help you with and whatnot? This is running on Civo. We are able to chat with it. And you can plug this API endpoint to your own chatbot, your own application and whatnot. And you can do a bunch of stuff, which is exactly what I'll be doing in the next demo. And keep the questions coming. You will get the offline video. So yeah, keep the questions coming and we will answer all the questions in the end. Now, let's say you don't want to. Yeah, go ahead.
So wait, Kunal, before you move on, I want to clarify a couple things. So what you just did was you've created a GitHub repository that already has the Terraform needed to go stand up your own Ollama on Civo, and it'll do the whole thing for you with basically one command because you've built that in there already. So if you want to go kick the tires with your own LLM, Kunal has made that a one-line command in Civo. And that'll be up and running with an API that you can hit yourself, and it's going to be running on Civo. Which one of the questions was, how's that different from running on my local machine? It's going to be much faster with cloud capable GPUs behind them. You can host your own machines, but you're not going to do that for a real publicly available product, right? You want to do that to mess around, that's great. Do it on your own machine. It's okay if it's slow. If you want to actually build something, you're going to want to run it with something with more compute power, like in Civo's cloud. So that's Kunal making it very, very easy to go from nothing to self-hosted Llama in the cloud. Keep going, Kunal. Yep. That's great.
Cool. Someone is asking, how is it different than Roo code? You use Roo code if you're building with a visual interface, like a no-code tool. There are plenty out there. We have some examples as well that we'll be showing you in the end. But thanks for bringing that up. Some people, they don't want to do this. They just want an API endpoint, and they want to plug it into their Python application, their JavaScript application, and whatnot. So that's what the demo 2 is about. We will be looking. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I keep interrupting. I'm making this real hard for you, Kunal. The reason you don't want to have to host your own models is what happens when there's a new version of that llama that comes out that you need to lifecycle? Do you have the capability to go lifecycle that? Can you manage the downtime while you're lifecycling that? How are you managing auditing who's had access to it, who hasn't, et cetera? Those are all the reasons why hosting your own llama is more complicated, and using something like Relax, where it's Josh's job to make sure that that model is up to date, to make sure that that model is up and running, to make sure that we life cycle that without notable downtime. There's a lot to keeping this up and going. If you're going to build a production application that you're going to build on top of an LLM, just go use something that's self-hosted, or that's a managed service like relaxAI. And sorry, keep going.
No, I agree. I mean, Ollama is great if you're running it on your own infra or whatever, but you still need that setup. You need GPUs, you need some DevOps knowledge and whatnot. Even though there's a Terraform whole project that I showed you, you still need some sort of a knowledge if you want to update something or whatnot. RelaxAI, like you mentioned, if you just want, let's say I just want a clean API and I can just call it from any application. And it's hosted on Civo, so your data stays private. The data sovereignty aspect of RelaxAI, very fast, scalable, maintained for you. So perfect for, if you're a team who just wants the AI features, but you don't want the hassle of running the models themselves. Let me actually show you how that works. What is this demo? So we are going to take a look at how we can use RelaxAI to build custom AI features directly into your applications. So this is compliant with the OpenAI API as well. Why is that important? If you're already using OpenAI, not much changes are required. The only change is the RelaxAI API key and the base URL. So the base URL you have to change, and the RelaxAI API key. like I said in the beginning, chatbots are nice, but sometimes you just want AI as a feature inside your product. So let's see how that works. What is the application that we're going to be using today? We have a Flask-based e-commerce application. Let me just show you that first. There you go. So this is, hopefully you can see my Megamart portal. So this is as close as I can get for the demo purpose, mimicking a real world behavior. So this is actually a real nice application running on Civo Kubernetes. As you can see, there's a public URL. Quickly, I'll share in simple terms what we're doing here. Application is a Flask-based e-commerce application. Database is the Postgres database hosted on Civo. Let me just show you that as well. And just so you know, it's not like some basic stuff I'm running on my local host. So database, that's the one that I'm using, the Postgres database. Then I set up just set up traffic as the ingress controller, push the image. We have Kubernetes secrets. Actually, let me just show you the code sample here. Kubernetes,
so what you're talking about, Kunal, is
service. Yeah.
You're talking about all the infrastructure required to make this an actual working, functioning application, and you've got that all spun up in Civo so that all the dots connect.
Yeah.
Most of the people attending this are probably technical enough to understand. Just for the few that aren't, that's what Kunal's explaining. Keep going.
Yeah. If you have no question is a bad question. So if you have even basic questions, you can ask. But I just then created some secrets deployed using the load balancer service, which is why I have that public IP. Application features are pretty decent. This is all I made myself for the whole thing. So what you can do is you can actually, let's say this is trying to mimic a order management and tracking platform for vendors. So for example, you can check all your orders here. So Emily has ordered this and this and this, and you can change the status of the order, shipped, and it's going to change that total revenue. You can see what all products are in your inventory over here as well. I won't spend too much time on this, but just to give you a bit of background, you can sort it. You can filter according to the name and prices. You can add in a new order. So Kunal Kushwaha, kunal@gmail.com. I don't have that email, but wish I did. Some random phone number. Covent Garden, London, UK. This is all running on the Civo infrastructure. So there's a backend connected to it. It's not just like here and there. Oh, actually, I have to add in some orders as well. Right, let me just do that again. Kunal Kushwaha, kunal@gmail.com, some random stuff, and I'll just say London, UK, Covent Garden, whatnot. Sure, no problem. Place order. So you can see order placed successfully, gives you a bunch of information back home. You can actually see the orders in your admin console. Kunal has just done this, but this is not what I want to show you. Everyone has such websites, but now the real thing is, how do we implement AI in it? So I'll show you the code base, but let me first show you how it actually works. So this is my AI assistant. This is powered by relaxAI. The database that I have over here. Let me it's actually over here. Yeah, there we go. So this is deployed on Kubernetes. Here, this is my e-commerce cluster. It's connected to this database, and relaxAI is making call to these databases. I'll show you the code sample. I'm actually happy to also share the code sample later, but you can just ask a question like how many total orders I have, and it will give you answer. So you have 101 orders. Which country has the most orders? So this is all relaxAI working in the backend. I'll show you the code in just a minute, but here you can see these are the countries and whatnot. Colombia, 3 orders. And you can ask it a bunch of information and a lot of other things. You can ask it like specific stuff as well, like, what did Kunal order? And Kunal ordered this Garmin and this thermostat or whatnot. And you can ask it, I'm not going to spend too much time here, but if there's a prompt you want me to run in this chatbot, let me know in the comment. But this is essentially the code code sample. This is just front-end stuff. I won't show you that. It's pretty basic. What I do want to show you is where I'm using the model.
Can
That's
you
the
zoom
main
in
part.
on this just a little bit,
I
Kunal,
will.
to show too?
Yes. Yeah.
When you find it, yeah.
So there we go. So this, as you can see, the main thing that I want to show you is, there are two things I want to show you. Sorry if I'm moving my stuff around. I want to show you relaxAI documentation, and I want to show you OpenAI pip. So the OpenAI Python library, the relaxAI is fully compliant with this. Let's say you want to do just like a chat, you want to do some images or whatnot, exactly the similar code, and you can just use that. Here you can see, let me just put this over here. Yeah, here you can see I have put the Llama 4 Scout model, and I'm using the OpenAI chat completion. After that, I just give it this prompt, like, you are a helpful assistant for this portal, and I give it the content, which is basically the user input that I am adding in. So user input that I just added in on my in the text. It's just taking that and passing it with the API, and that's it. This is just a simple Flask application, but it has a lot of moving components. So just I could mimic how people can implement things like these in the real world. But this is exactly like the OpenAI API that you're using. Other than that, someone was asking about other integrations. So yeah, there's Flowise AI. You can use the integration for that with relaxAI. All the information can be found over here. OpenHands, which is a platform designed to tackle software development tasks. There's the Llama Index. There's LangChain, quite popular. Flowise AI. If you have, let's say, another good example is you have a bunch of applications. You have your Gmail, you have your Slack, you have your Google Calendar. You want to make an AI chatbot, like whenever someone buys something from your website, it should automatically send them a WhatsApp message and automatically update the status in your Google Sheets URL or your sheet or whatever. So for that, you can use something like N8N. So it's like a click and drag workflow and pretty simple stuff. So we have a lot of integrations available. You can check out the documentation, but that was essentially what I wanted to show you. Yeah.
So let me just summarize here. So the reason this matters is the vast majority of people are not going and building just another LLM to compete directly with OpenAI, right? Like if you want to build an LLM application or an AI powered application, what you're probably going to do is have some kind of application that already exists. In Kunal's example, it's this Megamart, which I love the name. It's an e-commerce platform, and he's decided to integrate AI into Megamart in a, let's say what's a useful way to do this. And for his example, it's a person who works at Megamart on the back end being able to interact with the database and understand the data that's come through. So this is a common use case. Every company out there is trying to implement AI, right? And they're not just going and building another chatbot. What they're doing is trying to add AI into their application in some kind of meaningful way. And so what we're showing here is how to use relaxAI, which is private, secure, handled by Civo, to not have the kinds of data breaches, risks, etc., that you're seeing with ChatGPT, implemented with ease on Civo's platform, leveraging Civo's database, leveraging all these pieces just work together because it's built into the cloud, because it's an offering Civo's making. So if you're a decision maker at a company wondering how are you going to integrate an LLM into an application that you already have, that's what Kunal's showing. And showing off the integrations, I think, is a significant part of that. That's part of why Kunal's showing that, is we have built integrations into Relax, a significant number of them, to make development on top of relaxAI very, very smooth and easy. And sorry, Kunal, go ahead.
No, I agree. And there's already a lot of resources out there. I shared the relaxAI docs as well. But only thing you need to change, in OpenAI, you do /v1/chat/completions. You change that with the relaxAI URL. AI API is very simple and familiar. And for people who are asking, yes, this was making the call to my database and giving me answers in real time. So it was exactly the same. Like I had this project, and then I just integrated the OpenAI pip library, and they had a bunch of like good documentation, how to do chat completions and whatnot. Literally just one function, and it's literally just that one function, and that's it. Rest everything is whatever. Now you can do a bunch of stuff with it. Check out, I would say, the next step in the relaxAI page. I would say you check out the integrations page. So you find what works best for you, what's your use case, and then what sort of integrations you would like to work with. But that was it about the demo. We saw 2 demos, and I think we can. I'm going to get Josh on the screen as well, so we can do some.
Yeah, and Kunal, one of the questions that I think would be helpful for you to process is people are asking like, how is this different? Is this not a GPT model? Is this not a? And maybe Josh, you want to address this. I don't care who. What kind of model is this? How are we life cycling it? How is it different from ChatGPT? I think that's a helpful place to start.
I'll pick that one up. So as an alternative to building and training our own internal models, we base entirely on the open source models that are available. We think about standing on the shoulders of the open source community, and then also giving back the advancements that we make is incredibly important. Relax is presently powered by the Llama 4 model ecosystem, but we have a number of custom models online that are available if those don't meet the requirements of end users. We have a number of sophisticated model management techniques that we build internally. So behind Relax is actually a full model lifecycle that does things like keep this model up to date, evaluates the model accuracy, evaluates that the model never starts saying things that it shouldn't say and giving correct answers, and actually does a number of kind of high quality validations on things like the function tool calling that is available behind it. So there's a whole machine in keeping these models online and working, probably more than the complexity of the web app. But to give a difference between us and ChatGPT is obviously ChatGPT have a single model they provide you with. There's different generations of that model, and you're locked to the ChatGPT release chain. With Relax, you have the open source model community, which gives you access to multiple release chains made by multiple developers. And we think that being able to leverage that in the best state of affairs actually gives you a lot more autonomy in how to build your AI solutions.
Yeah, let me quickly just share that one thing. Some people were asking, I didn't show you this. So that's just what the setup looks like. Here you would have your OpenAI key, but I've added the relaxAI key and just changed the base URL. And like Josh mentioned, we are running on the Llama 4 models. I showed you that earlier as well. Here you can see, we just selected the model as Llama 4 Scout. And then you can just play around with it, use what other methods are available in the Python library. Yeah, just some standard stuff. I'm connecting with my database, creating tables and whatnot. But that's it. That was what I wanted to show you. Yeah, I'll stop my screen share.
So, first of all, thank you, Kunal. Thank you, Josh. If you are interested in this, please do take a second, scan this QR code, fill in a form. Sales will get in touch with you. We're happy to discuss with you how you can build on top of Civo, how you can build on top of relaxAI. Again, it's important that these two things interact with each other, right? You want to go use ChatGPT, you need to use a separate cloud to interact with ChatGPT, and now you have the risk on both ends. And this entirely being within Civo's ecosystem, it's one place to interact. It's already integrated in significant ways. It's going to make your life a lot easier. So take that QR code quickly, and then we're going to dive into some questions because I want to make sure that we get to some of the questions that people asked on their way in. So we'll leave this up for a minute, and let's go ahead. And first up, Rajiv asked, how can developers use GenAI responsibly and avoid plagiarism or data leaks? And you've addressed some of this already, Josh, but why don't you take that one head on?
Of course, we can talk about what we do with relax.ai. So if you do a web search with Relax, not only do we make sure that we have the licensing and the rights to use the data that's returned for inference, but in addition to that, we give a full citation and set of references about where that data is from. And I think that one of the most interesting areas right now in machine learning and AI is a concept called grounding, which is making sure that you have the source materials behind the claim that you're making. And we think that's really critical. We're also very much so aware right now that obviously a lot of this copyrighted data is being used in training sets. We very much so work to the letter of the laws and regulations around how that works and provide you protection from being able to worry about that if you use the relaxAI service. But I would say if you're doing something where you're running the model yourself in your Civo environment, training and bringing in your own data, that is a thing that we tell developers to be very mindful of and have processes and thoughts about how they're doing so.
Yeah. Okay, great. Let's take this next one. Rohit asked, how can generative AI transform the daily workflows of software engineers across various departments, including QA and support? And maybe it would be helpful here to touch on too some of the integrations that we have and the ways that they do this. And I don't know which of the two of you wants to take that.
I'll kick it off. We've all got something to add to this, I think, which is I'd say go grab Klein, go grab Roo code, start to look at how you can get an LLM helping you understand your code base, and actually start to begin in a very light way developing features using that. I don't think we're at zero-shot GenAI software engineer augmentation with Jensen and Satya Nadella saying that all software engineers are going to be redundant by next year. But I do think that now is probably the most exciting time to be an AI-enabled software engineer. And particularly being an AI-enabled AI engineer will help make that learning curve that everyone's going on for AI much smoother. So get involved. Relax has both Roo code, Klein, and all the other vibe coding tools to use alongside that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to add one thing to that. I haven't written meaningful code in 20 years. And with the help of AI, I can go be just dangerous enough to cause problems. It's a good thing I'm not writing production ready code, but I have gone and created a few, Slack bots. I have done a few other things, vibe coding my way into it. And all of it is beautiful and doesn't quite work because I'm not quite smart enough to follow along because it's been too long. But if you're an engineer who knows how to interact with these things, you're going to be impressed with the lift that it gives you. Also, I've particularly seen in the QA process, it's really fascinating what a computer can pick up that humans miss. And so there is a lot of advantages to be had by integrating this into your systems in a couple different places. Okay, which one should we do next? How can we integrate agents into enterprise level work, Nikesh asks. And we just had a little bit of a demo of that, in what Kunal was doing, even though his app didn't look enterprise. It's a pretty hands-on display of a way that a mega mart type company could integrate AI agents. But which of you would like to address this one?
I can start, and I would love to hear what Josh mentions. But I think, what was the question? Integrate AI agents in? Enterprise.
Yeah, how can you integrate AI agents into enterprise level work?
I think it should be modular and auditable and tightly scoped. And when we talk about agents, we're obviously talking about APIs, what tools you want to give access to your agents. But especially in enterprises, it's also, you have to monitor the performance, for example, and ensure that they interact safely with the systems that you already have in place. There are a lot of orchestration frameworks available out there. There are fine-tuned LLMs. Some enterprises, they like hosting on private cloud or VPCs. If you're working in regulated industries, we have a service called Civo FlexCore. We are getting a lot of demand for that. Companies who are working in regulated industries, they want to run their own stuff. So, it depends on what your needs are. But I think it's much more different than just, creating a simple LLM AI agent for any specific tasks that you want to accomplish. Josh?
Yeah, I think now is the best time for someone to grab like a single sheet of A4, write down a really hard business problem, write down an AI solution, the data you need to solve that solution, and go take it to your boss. And I think every level of management right now is looking to crack an AI use case. And the real people you need to solve that are people who join this webinar today, understand these components, understand these capabilities, and push them forward. So I would tell everyone right now to write an AI business case. Say, we have a customer support process. I want to do sentiment analysis of those tickets to highlight which customers are most frustrated and put that on display for the customer management team. And talk about the impact you think that will have, which will be like increased efficiency in the business, time to resolution. And at the same time, go talk to your boss about, hey, I want to increase my productivity, something your boss is always going to be interested in doing. And say, hey, can I get a relaxAI license to start looking at how I can automate some code generation? Or actually, could I use Relax to write all my docs for me and my unit tests, and I just focus on my coding? And at the same time, I think the bit I would really say, particularly in enterprise context, is make sure you've got a really good understanding of that data. But then alongside that, make sure you've got the permissions to use that data, it's sized, and you've got support to be able to do so. And I think actually right now, support for launching an AI product, no matter what level of expertise, is outstanding.
Yeah. There's so there's so much that I want to pick off about that, but the going to your boss and asking for a relaxAI license so that you can improve your efficiency is a great way to do that. I had a conversation about a year ago with two very senior engineers at a very large company, and one of them said, "I'm so frustrated here because ever since I came here, the only thing I do is write design documentation. I don't get to write code anymore, and writing code is my passion." And the other engineer was laughing and didn't say anything. And finally, this one guy said, "Well, why are you laughing?" He said, "The only thing I do is write code. Then when I'm done with the code, I take it to an LLM and I ask it to write me the design documentation for that code. I take that design documentation, I hand it to my boss approves it, I wait 2 weeks, and I give him the code that I had written initially. I can't give it to him immediately because then he thinks I'm a superhero. But there's so many ways that this works. But I got a huge kick out of that story. I think along the same lines as this question, and I want to keep it going, is how can small and medium enterprises build a sustainable GenAI strategy without deep technical resources or budgets? And I think we've shown some of that today, but let's touch on that. Like there's, to your point, Josh, sit down and come up with a business plan on a piece of A4, or if you're in the US, do it on a letter paper because you won't be able to find an A4 sheet to save your life. But anyways, how do you do this in a lightweight way?
I think
Don't go ahead, Josh.
I'll be very quick, but I think I'll just say very curtly, we are built for that type of problem. And where typical GenAI strategies will make you rent 8 A100 GPUs as a minimum on platforms like Amazon, will allow you to rent 1 and get started at a fraction of the cost. And that gives you a much more organic scaling steps to be able to build up towards that enterprise use case. I think from a sustainable point of view, it obviously means 2 things. One about return on investment. And I think one of those things is actually, how is your AI going to put food back on the table to solve business problems and add revenue? But then in addition to that, in sustainability from an environmental point of view, things like Lund 2, which is Civo's region, which is carbon neutral, we think is really important and critical to our strategy.
Yeah. Kunal, anything to add?
Yeah, no, could not agree more. I would say also, if you want, you can. Sometimes it might be some of the challenges I've seen is to get the yes from the upper management. So if you start small with high impact use cases, let's say you're automating your support or doing some content creation or whatnot. We did a survey, I think last year or year before that. I think open source solves a lot of challenges that companies face in today's time when implementing an AI strategy. So and check out Civo. Yeah.
So for time's sake, we're going to wrap up here. This QR code is going to stay on the screen for just a second more in case you want to reach out and talk with us. Thank you for coming. Today we've talked about a number of things. GenAI is everywhere, and enterprises are all trying to adopt it. There's lots of reasons why they're failing to do so. Abandoning projects, giving up, there's risk involved, security, etc. relaxAI exists to make this problem go away. And it's built on top of Civo, so you get tight integration with a cloud provider to make it really easy to deploy, build your applications, make something work at the enterprise level. Sit down with that piece of A4. I'm so caught on that idea, Josh. And come up with some ideas and come build it on Civo. And reach out to us if you have any questions on how to do that. You know where to find Kunal, Josh. You can welcome to reach out to me. Scan this QR code and we'll route you in the right place. We would love to have you kicking the tires with Civo and with relaxAI and solving all of your GenAI needs. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Have a great day.